Hey everyone, it's Jackie from Vegan Yack Attack, and I am back with a brand new recipe and video for you today. Right now, we are making some crusty whole wheat bread that has apples and craisins and pecans inside. May as well just dub this a baking channel at this point. Kind of just kidding, but the fall, it's not 120 outside. This is my time to shine. So, I just want to say that this lovely whole wheat loaf is inspired by the recipe from Bigger Bolder Baking. She did an amazing 5-ingredient whole wheat bread recipe, super easy and probably my favorite that I've tried, and I've made like several whole wheat bread recipes that are yeasted. And yeah, hers was my favorite, and I thought I would just, add a little fall oomph to it and change things up just a little bit, not too much, not trying to, mess with perfection too much. But I just wanted to say that her recipe was great. So I'm gonna link that in the description for you to see if you want something a little bit more basic. Along with changing some of the ingredients, I've also changed the timeline a bit and the methods just a teeny bit because, as you know, I like to expedite certain things, at least a little bit. So let's get to the ingredients and then we can hurry up and wait. We have equal parts whole wheat flour and unbleached all-purpose flour, some agave nectar, you can also use maple syrup, salt, instant yeast. I'll put the conversion for instant to active dry yeast in the description for you in case you need it. Some lukewarm water. Then we have some diced apples, some diced pecans, some sugar, and ground cinnamon. For the fruits and cinnamon and sugar and pecans, you won't need those until a few hours later, so feel free to leave them out or don't prep them until your loaf is almost ready to go. First things first, we're going to just start our bread loaf. We'll combine our dry ingredients and then some of our wet. First, our whole wheat flour, then our unbleached all-purpose flour, then our instant yeast and our sea salt. And just whisk that together until it's combined. Okay. Now we'll take our lukewarm water. You want somewhere between like 80, 85 degrees and 100 degrees basically, so that we can start this process off pretty quickly. We don't have to wait for its own heat to generate basically. So we'll combine the agave and the warm water. Just whisk that together. And then add this mixture into our flour. Now I'm just gonna poke around with the whisk because really I'm going to knead this by hand. The mixture is going to seem dry at first, but once you knead it, you'll see, it'll get a little tacky. It'll get a little less like firm. Let me get all this dough off of here. But it's definitely way easier to do this with your hands. You can also use like a dough hook in a mixer if you want. I just like that this kind of has like less things to clean up, I guess. Does it though? I don't know. This is just, seems like less work than hauling out the mixer, even though I love my KitchenAid mixer. But yeah, there's something nice about just kind of kneading it yourself. And you want to knead it until there are no dry spots. Basically, once the side of the bowl can be like, kind of like stuck clean. So you see the dough is nice and pliable, even though it seemed like that might be a lot of flour at the beginning. Ooh, this is perfect. Okay, and you see that most of the flour is gone from the edges. This stuff is just like kind of sticky in there, not a big deal. Now, here's where, well, I've already done a few things differently, but here's where we have the main difference. In some yeasted loaves like this, they want you to have it sit and rise for like 12 to 18 hours. And frankly, that just sounds terrible to me. So, you know, my kitchen can be pretty warm at times, around 75 to 80 degrees, but when it's not, I've said this before, I just turn on the oven light and my oven stays at about 80 degrees with that warm like halogen bulb in there. So what we're gonna do is cover this with a big bowl like this. Instead of saran wrap, I'm just gonna cover it with a large plate, like such. And I'm going to leave it in the oven because instead of that 12 to 18 hours at like 70 degrees, at 80 degrees, it's really only gonna take like 6 to 8 hours or maybe even less. I mean, I've had it take like 5 hours, but basically you want the dough to double in size. So that will be your tell for when it's going to be done. Once it reaches that size, we can start the second part. With the magic of television, wow. She's done rising. AKA, I started this one this morning. So now we're going to get her ready for the second half of this process. So first we need to dust our working surface with some flour. And this one, I might actually need quite a bit of flour. We'll see. Here we are. And then, whoo, look at that. I'll just pull it away from the edges. Ooh, look at that yeasty monster. All right, and I just, because this is a bit sticky, now that it's risen, gonna stamp the air out of it and shape it a little bit, or just at least get it ready to fill. Because what I want to do, we'll see what happens, is roll this out, or roll this up kind of like you would a cinnamon roll, but it's for a loaf of bread. And it's not quite as like decadent as a cinnamon roll. I made it this way about a week ago and I'm obsessed. I mean, I love bread to begin with, but this I was just toasted with a little vegan butter. Oh, it's so good. Okay, I can't wait for you to try this, basically is what I'm saying. So now, it's nice and fluffy. Because I want this to be a little bit more of an oblong shape, because I do like cutting it for like sandwiches and toast. I don't want this like big bowl, kind of like how I normally do sourdough. I'm going to roll it up and then it'll be, you know, like this. Also, my Dutch oven that we'll be cooking it in is an oblong oval shape. If yours is circular, just make it circular. Just be careful of like, keep your eye on it when it's baking, that's all. There's not gonna be a huge difference in time, honestly, but we'll get there when we get there. First, let's spread out the fruits. See, I didn't put too many because honestly, it just kind of makes it a pain in the ass to toast because all the stuff just starts falling out. So like I said, it'll be a bit lighter definitely than like your cinnamon loaf or roll that you're kind of thinking of. Then we have our dried cranberries. There we go. And you can always like mix everything up and then do this, but you know, whatever. As long as it gets spread out, not a big deal. Okay. And then we have our diced pecans. I'm so burpy. Sorry. Get those spread out pretty evenly. And they really are like a nice crunch once you are eating the bread. I've just been eating the bread by itself, or like I said, with a little vegan butter. It's just so good. Okay, so here, because I've done this and now this is too small to mix, I'm going to mix the cinnamon and sugar together here. And then sprinkle it around. And this just creates this like nice ribbon in the dough without being like excessive. Okay, yum, yum, yum. Now we're just gonna roll her up. And I'm actually gonna fold this in half because it's pretty wide. And there we are. Wow, wow, wow. So now what I'm going to do is we're gonna do the second rising. Because of everything in it, I'm actually gonna pinch the sides together a little bit. Because of everything that's in it, I feel like the second rising needs to be a little bit longer than the original recipe calls for, because I really want everything to just kind of like meld into the loaf instead of being separated, so that you get this like nice sliceable bread, right? So now we're going to, you can either put it back in your bowl, you can put it in the Dutch oven, but what you need to know is that we're gonna preheat the Dutch oven. So it's probably better off going back in the bowl, but I'm going to line it with parchment paper first. Now with this parchment paper, we can just transfer it easily to the Dutch oven once the Dutch oven is preheated, because it will be very hot. Put our little baby away. You know what? I need a bigger bowl than this. This is not gonna cut it. All right, because it will get bigger. We want it to double in size roughly. There we go. Now she has some room to grow. And I'll cover with a baking sheet now that this is very large. Yeah, I'll have to cover this with a baking sheet because we do want the air kept out of here. And let it rise for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, again, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. So I'll see you when she's done. It's been a little over an hour, and about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, I started preheating the oven to 425. So you wanna do that, but make sure you take your proofing loaf out before you do that. You don't wanna pre-torch it, basically. Wow, look at this behemoth. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess I wasn't expecting it to be this large, but it's fine because I have a big old Dutch oven to put this in. So what we are going to do is, I'm not even gonna do like a fancy cut or anything, but I am going to cut one line in here with my little lame, I forgot how to say that, just so it can grow and expand a little bit. So I'm just gonna go right, ooh. This is a wet loaf, so it's like, oh my gosh. For real, I need to get an eraser. This is clearly not sharp enough. Oh my goodness, what a mess. Okay, but honestly, it'll be fine because it'll be delicious, so it doesn't matter. Now, let's move this out of the way so we can transfer it to our preheated Dutch oven. This also cuts down on baking time just a little bit and helps really poof it up in the initial baking. Now carefully grab the parchment paper and just sit that in there. Dang, this is gonna be a huge loaf. I don't think I realized this. All right. I'm going to quickly put this back on, pop it in the oven for about 25 minutes. Then we'll take the lid off and let it bake out for another 25 minutes, basically until it's nice and golden brown on the outside, just solidly brown really, and the internal temperature will be 190. I finally Googled it, and it's lamb. That's how you say it, lamb. And I ordered another one because this one's not very good. Don't get this one if you see it online. Now, let's take the lid off of our Dutch oven. And, oh my goodness. Isn't she so cute? She'd be cuter with a better cut, but she smells amazing. So, back in there for about 25-30 minutes. Like I said, just pay attention to the inner temperature. As long as it's at 190, it's done. And you want it to be nice and golden brown. Okay, so we really only needed just under 20 minutes to get this up to 190. here's probably my least favorite part about baking bread, is that as delicious as this looks, we'll see if we can carefully lift this out, I now have to wait probably like an hour at least until the bread has cooled down enough for us to actually cut into it. So I'm gonna let her sit for a little bit, let her cool. I mean, it might even be 2 hours. We'll see. Maybe all my makeup will be worn off by then. But let's come back in a couple hours. Very nice, sounds so good. And we'll slice her open. Okay, I've waited pretty patiently. This is still a little warm, so I do recommend waiting until it's fully room temp, but I don't know if I myself have ever followed that advice, so do with that what you will, but definitely wait until it's like much, much cooler, because if it's hot, it'll just be gummy and it won't be enjoyable. So just know that when baking any bread. Now, we're gonna do crumb shot, so slice it right in the middle. Ooh, yum! I love this recipe because it's like perfect for toast or even sandwiches, in that the crumb is pretty tight. It's not like how some of the sourdoughs is nice and bubbly and, you know, it's airy. This is not that. This is like a slightly denser loaf, but still really nice, and then just perfect for slathering on, like I said earlier, either a little bit of vegan butter after you toast it, or I really like almond butter on this actually, with some like thinly sliced apples on top, a little bit more cinnamon, a little extra drizzle of agave. Is a really great breakfast that I've had probably like 5 times in the last week or so. So here you are. Here's our delicious loaf. I guess you're waiting for me to maybe try a piece of it. All right, I'll try it. Ooh. It's nice and warm still, not too warm, like I said. Just take, ooh. Take the most awkward bite. Really good. Not like over the top sweet or anything. It really is just a solid whole wheat loaf that has these nice little morsels of cranberry and apple and pecans. So good. I'm gonna get my butter out. Meanwhile, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. You can find the whole recipe and the link below in the description, and I'll see you next time.